There are movies you watch and then feel the urge to sip coffee, eat pie, and discuss the finer nuances of it afterwards. And then there are movies that make you want to down a plate of the hottest chicken wings, chug down the strongest whiskey on the shelf, and scream to whatever devils that can hear you from hell how awesome it was. For the Sake of Vicious is the latter. It's a celebration of violence and horror, so pour a round of shots, fire up the grill, and let's talk about that motherfucker of a revenge movie. Welcome back to ML Miller Frights. I'm ML Miller. Before we begin, please do me a favor and punch that like button down below. Share this video with all of your social media addicted pals. Click subscribe to this channel and ring that bell for notifications. For the Sake of Vicious is new streaming on Shudder. It's directed and written by Gabriel and Reese Eveneshen. Overworked nurse and single mom Romina, poor Agnes's Laura Burke, comes home to find her landlord and shady businessman Alan, played by Colin Paradine, unconscious on her kitchen floor and a stranger standing over him. This stranger is Chris, played by Nick Smith, a rage-filled father who accuses Alan of abducting and raping his daughter. After torturing and attempting to force a confession out of Alan, Chris has shown up at the nurse's home to make sure Alan doesn't die before confessing. But Alan breaks free and messages his very dangerous associates. Armed with a single handgun and a hammer, Chris and Romina have to fight for their lives against a gang of masked bikers hired to make sure no one gets out of the house alive. For the Sake of Vicious is a brutal film, freight training through the opening credits and right on down the track until the final crawl. It's a film that pulls no punches and takes no prisoners. No one is safe, no one has plot armor, and no one dies easily. The goal to up the body count often takes away from the realism in most horror films. People are stabbed or shot and immediately fall dead. That's not the case in For the Sake of Vicious. This film understands that the human body can take quite an amount of punishment before expiring, and while the cast might be relatively small, this film doesn't measure its carnage in body count. It does it in hits and stabs, shots and crashes. While there are some talky bits in between the bloodshed, For the Sake of Vicious offers long stints of grunts, growls, gasps, and groans as its sole dialogue. In the world of unrealistic Tarantinoian monologues, it's kind of refreshing to enjoy the long silences in dialogue and simply witness the gorgeous dance of bodies colliding into one another with the worst of intentions in mind. For the Sake of Vicious is not for the squeamish or sensitive. It's a harrowing experience, reminiscent of the raw emotion last seen in Panos Cosmatos and Nick Cage's revenge epic Mandy. And speaking of Nick Cage, star Nick Smith, who plays Chris, is the spinning image of a young Nick Cage. He even goes over the top, and then some, just like Cage himself. His co-star, Laura Burke, is equally fantastic. She delivered one hell of a performance in Poor Agnes as a female serial killer. Here she easily portrays the middle ground conflict of not knowing who to believe in this argument. Her frustration is palpable for most of the film, and when asses need to be kicked, she isn't afraid to dive into that either. Finally, Colin Paradine may spend most of the time bound and gagged in a chair, but I have to point out how powerful his performance is, as he simply offers up looks, gasps, and glances alone. This is a wonderfully nuanced performance with very little dialogue. All around, the acting in For the Sake of Vicious is top drawer. For the Sake of Vicious has a simple plot. One man is out for revenge against another, with one woman in between them attempting to rationalize it all out. Once the stances are explained, the film simply lets the conflict play out through brutal action, not discussion. Some might criticize this film for a threadbare plot, but for me, it's not lacking in plot. The plot is quite powerful, but it just doesn't need a lot of explanation or wordplay. Both Alan and Chris are at an impasse. Chris thinks Alan raped his daughter. Alan denies it. And no matter how much torture occurs, nothing changes. Sure, there could have been an hour of chit-chat attempting to get to the bottom of things. Instead, For the Sake of Vicious communicates the point that once violence occurs, it doesn't matter what is said. Once we give in to simple animal instincts, discussion really leaves the dojo. And that's what happens in this film. All reasoning and level-headedness is spent by the time we catch up with the characters of this story, and that leaves us with pure emotion, relentless brutality, and the sole goal of survival taking center stage. For the Sake of Vicious is absolutely gory, never turning away from the violence but bearing full force into it. It's not a thinking man's film, it's a pure feeling man's film, where everything is a result of frayed and spent emotion. It may be one of the more violent films I've seen in ages, but the violence is tied to the desperation and frustration felt by the characters involved. Yes, it's front and center, but there is definitely a point to it all. If you're looking for a hard-edged, tension-filled gauntlet of blood, bullets, blades, and body parts, For the Sake of Vicious is the revenge-fueled hurricane you're looking for.
You're doomed to live the life you're meant to be, stuck inside your reality. You're